Hi, this is Wayne Connell with Invisible Disabilities Association, and I've got a great friend of our organization on the phone, and her name is Kathe Skinner, and we're going to let Kathe tell you a little bit about herself, and then she's going to share with us about the communications and the do's and don'ts when you communicate with somebody. I think I got it right, Kathe, so go for it.
Yeah, that sounds close enough. Hi, Wayne. Hi, everybody. I wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about the communication do's and don'ts for disabled folks. You know, communication is one of those things that disabled, invisibly, visibly, or not, how well we communicate with other people, from the grocery store cashier to the manager at work to our partners or kids, can set us up for happiness or not. The skills you need may surprise you. But let's talk about that for a sec. How do you make a splash? Take a minute and think about this. Who pays attention to you when you talk? Does anybody ever say, speak up, don't be shy? Or, I didn't hear you say that. Well, you didn't say that. You never said that. You could probably give me many more examples of when you felt heard or when you didn't feel heard. So let me ask you something else. What was the message in your head when somebody said those things? When somebody said, I didn't hear you say that, or you never said that. Or when somebody said to you, speak up, don't be shy, and said it in kind of a bossy way. I think we all can relate to some of those things. And we make those kinds of, we do those kinds of things, we react in those kinds of ways, depending on, obviously, on what somebody is asking us or what we're talking about. But we're talking here for the sake of argument about something that's really pretty important to us. For some of us, responses from people that are kind of dismissive are just annoying. Some people are, not me, but some people are just annoyed when somebody says, you never said that. Some people may be a little bit frustrated or irritated. Some of us, like me, really get angry. And it's generally not about what has been said, but because we've been embarrassed, because we've put ourselves out there in the first place, maybe kind of taken a leap to do that, speaking up and not being heard or being dismissed. Well, like I said, that can lead to anger, certainly for me, and maybe for some other folks who are listening too. For some people who encounter that on a regular basis, on a long-term basis, who never really feel that they're heard, that can be pretty depressing. Okay. And worst of all, people sometimes shut down from even talking about things that are important to them because they never feel that they're going to be heard again anyway. They say to themselves, well, I tried it once, didn't work, so that's it. The fact is, and you know this from other life experiences, that to be successful, and I don't mean making money, being elected something, or doing any kind of job, but to be successful at being heard, we have to talk. We can say things in a whole lot of ways, but the important thing is to say it. So being heard is important for lots of reasons that directly impact the lives of people who are disabled. Stop for a second again and think of some of the things that you really find impactful when you're not heard or when you are heard. What are some of the important things that happen in your life that make it very important for you to be heard. Where are the places it's important for you to be heard? Who is it important for you to be heard by? How often do you need to feel heard? Every time you speak? Sometimes? Okay, keep those responses in mind as I throw out some of the kinds of things that I kind of came up with. Really important for me, number one, to be heard by my husband. This is the person I am around all the time. So it's extremely important for me to feel heard by him. When I don't, and there are times when I don't, and there are times when he doesn't feel heard by me, we kind of get into this really kind of sticky spot where we don't even really like to talk to each other because it's an exercise in futility. So that's the number one place that it's important for me to feel heard. Doctor's office, it's hugely important. I cannot function well in the kind of environment where you have to make a list and you have to talk about all of the ailments and the questions and get answers in 12 minutes, gotta go out the door. That's extremely frustrating to me. Thankfully, I have a neurologist who's not like that, and I can spend an hour with him. It's heavenly. Where else? Did some of you say at work? Yeah, really important. Because the fact is, you probably spend more time at work than you do at home. Our satisfaction with ourselves really is a big result of being at work. That's where we get a lot of our self-esteem, feeling that we've done a good job. Hugely important. The other place that I felt that I just got my hair cut, so this is very much on my mind. It's really important for me to feel heard at the place that I get my hair cut. I like most women out there, I can remember the feeling of coming home and thinking, oh my God, I can't wait till it grows out and it looks so horrible. Never looked as bad as all that, but certainly not the way I wanted it to look. So it's really important to be heard and understood. So communication in this event is hugely important. At a restaurant, another place, I do not want my order to be all screwed up, which has happened, and it's thankfully not been a huge issue because I like just about anything. But it can be kind of annoying, especially when you're paying a lot of money. So I think you get the picture that it's very important to be heard most everywhere, unless you're talking to yourself. And if you start not listening to yourself, you're in really big trouble. So when is it good to speak up? Okay. When is it good to speak up? Is it always a good idea to speak up? No. Sometimes it's a very good idea to hold your tongue. But in most cases, in the event of visible or invisible, especially invisible disability, because there's so many assumptions and assumptions made about us that people don't quite understand because they don't know that there's a disability at work. So in these kinds of cases, speak up as soon as you have something to say. Speak up when you need to make a correction, when somebody is off on the wrong track, or when you disagree with somebody, especially somebody who's talking about something you're very, very familiar with. Could be about your disability. What happens when you don't? It's like, I was thinking about this, and I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but it's kind of like an episode of I Love Lucy. You remember the one where where she was doing the chocolates in the factory, and she was like eating every other one because she wasn't able to keep up. Well, misunderstanding in this case leads to a series of disasters. And in I Love Lucy's case, it was funny, but for most of us, it is not quite so funny. But this is the kind of thing that leads to disaster. One misunderstanding after another. So it's really, really important that you speak up. And, when you think about I Love Lucy or any other sitcom or something like that where, it's all based on a disaster that gets misunderstood from the get-go. The reason it's funny is because we can all relate. Comedy is not funny if it doesn't get to us. In fact, they can say that comedy, below all comedy is a little bit of anger, and that's probably very true. So, in the third case, that it's a really good idea to speak up is when your body is telling you to speak up. I get tense, and my shoulders kind of hunch. Some people kind of clench their jaws. Some people feel it in their stomachs. They get kind of nauseated or whatever. Your body is telling you that something is going on. The more uncomfortable or annoyed you get, the greater the reason to stop and set the record straight. So, with that said, let me kind of give you my quick list of do's and don'ts for speaking up for yourself, for communication, if you're invisibly or visibly, but invisibly, especially invisibly disabled. Okay? Do. Take 5. Gather your thoughts. Put your best foot forward. You don't want to come across like I Love Lucy. Don't rush in. So many of us have such a huge reaction almost immediately that we just want to charge right in and set the record straight. Bad idea. Because when you're speaking from emotion, you make huge mistakes in the facts, especially the facts as you see them. You can get very emotional, and people don't generally react well to emotion in somebody. They get emotional back, and the two people start, ramping it up, and not a good outcome here. Certainly not good communication skill. Do put your thoughts together. It's as simple as this may sound. I mean, you could say, well, I know what I'm talking about here. I know what I want to say. It probably is a really good idea to jot down 3 things that you want to say. 3 things max. And the reason for this is that if you're like me at all, I can go on rabbit trails endlessly. That's why I don't get any work done when I'm in front of a computer, because I just go from one thing to another, to another, to another. It's a wonder anybody gets any work done at all. So put your thoughts together and stick to those things. Don't go off in another direction. You are really respected when you're very clear and you stick to being very clear. Don't wing it. Oh, disaster waiting to happen. Don't wing it. You get all tied up in knots, and the more you get tied up in knots, the less sense you make, and the farther away from the point that you were trying to make you get. Stay calm. That's hard, but a lot easier if you take 5. And if you put your thoughts together, because here you have a little script, you know what you're going to say. You don't have to try to make it up. Don't be angry. There's another emotion that is going to get in the way of you making your point. more to the point, it's going to get in the way of anyone hearing your point because they're going to react to your anger and not what you're saying. Do soothe yourself. Chances are that when you're speaking up, your feathers are ruffled just a little bit. So take a few minutes to, there's that take 5, take a few minutes to take a few deep breaths, to maybe walk around the room, to maybe shake out some tension. The big thing is don't make yourself sick over this. It's never a good idea to be talking about something that's near and dear to your own well-being if you are demolishing your well-being all by yourself. Speak generally. Now that sounds kind of odd, but speak generally. So many of us make it about just ourselves. And when we make it about just ourselves, when we're talking about invisible disability, for example, that if we're not speaking generally, we're getting too much to the heart of the matter, and then we're getting personal. And when we start getting personal, it's kind of like that making yourself sick or rushing in or being emotional. So speak generally. Don't take it personally. If somebody has parked in the handicapped spot and you're trying to explain to them why it's important not to, it takes a lot of courage to do that one. Don't speak for just yourself, although in the next instance I'm going to tell you to speak for yourself. But for the time being, don't speak for just yourself. Speak about the invisibly disabled community in general. If you take it too personally, then somebody's going to dismiss you as just kind of this kook. Yeah, it's just bothering her or him. I am going to tell you to speak for yourself. You do need to make an impact, and being too dispassionate doesn't really make an impact. Speaking for yourself means that you don't speak for everyone. When you get to describing what it means, for example, saying, and this is how I feel when this happens, or this is what happens to me when I have to park further away in the parking lot, to go back to that handicap spot example. Then somebody can begin to relate to, hey, this person doesn't look like they're disabled, but yeah, what they're describing really is a problem, and they will understand you. Explain your point. But don't expect somebody to get it. Some people are really dense. Some people don't want to understand. Some people don't want to give you the satisfaction of being understood. You've made your point, and that's kind of where it has to stop. If your point is to be understood, it's up to the other person to do that part of it. All you can do is to explain your point, to be clear about it, to be unemotional, to speak for yourself, and to speak generally. And then what the other person chooses to do with it is entirely up to the other person. You can't control anything that anybody else does, only yourself. Be specific. Don't assume people are going to get it, because people aren't where you're at. Even people who are very close to us don't know what it feels like to be disabled, don't know what it feels like. For example, in my case, my mobility is impacted. And I will bet you that my husband can empathize, but he doesn't know what it feels like not to be able to run. And what that means, just on a very personal level. So be specific. Don't assume that somebody is going to get it, because they won't.
So Kathe,
mostly,
So tell me a little bit about how about yourself, specifically. Kind of what you're dealing with. A little bit about your organization, your company, and how people can get a hold of you.
Well, if you will let me say two more things, I will be more than delighted to. I was just about to wrap up when you said that, so your timing is excellent. I did want to encourage people to say something. It's very difficult to do. I think especially when you're visibly disabled, I think people question you all the time. In my case, I have multiple sclerosis, and I've been diagnosed for, over 30 years. I'm very fortunate in that my symptoms have not been so bad that I am unable to work. I do still work, and I am a relationship coach. Love working with couples, and I'm in private practice. I've been in private practice as a marriage and family therapist for over 16 years. Went back to school later in life, and very much enjoy not only the teaching, but also working with couples. There's so much that's interesting and challenging about taking our own stuff and combining it with somebody else's. That, boy, it's like a puzzle.
And how do we get a hold of you?
You can either give me a call. My office number is 719-598-6232. That's 719-598-6232. But a better way to do that, to get a hold of me, is to contact me at my website, which is www.beingheardnow, appropriately enough, being heard, that's with a D, now.com.
Well, this has been so great and enlightening, and I so appreciate you sharing this with us and being heard, and how people, the times they need to speak up and the times they need to think about, is it the right time to speak up? And I so appreciate you as a friend of Ida as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wayne.